Okay, in today's lesson, we're going to look a little bit deeper into volume. Yesterday's lesson, we developed a formula for volume. So today, we're just going to review a little bit what volume is to begin our lesson and what's true about volume. So stop your video and write down everything you remember about what volume is and some things that are true about volume. Okay, then come back to me. Okay, so if you said that volume is the amount of space of a rectangular prism occupies, remember we're talking about 3D shapes. So the amount of space that's inside of a 3D shape, and we're using unit cubes, how many cubes it takes to fill that up. So how much space is inside of a 3D shape. And remember, what's true about volume is that we have to use unit cubes. We're using unit cubes. And remember, in yesterday's, we had centimeters, inches. So the cubes would be in either inches or centimeters or meters. So it would be, 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. So just depending on the unit that you're using. So, and remember that when we're talking about volume, it's the amount of cubes that it takes to fill it up with no gaps. There can't be no gaps or nothing overlapping. Okay, so that's volume. So now that we have that, let's talk a little bit more about it and how it's related to area. So we're going to draw a rectangle that is 3 centimeters by 4 centimeters long. And it's okay if you don't have a ruler. I don't have a ruler here to do it, but I'm just going to draw one. So go ahead and draw something that's about 3 centimeters and 4 centimeters. So we're going to draw a rectangle that's 3 centimeters and 4 centimeters. Okay, so stop the video and do that. Okay, I drew mine here on the side. I drew a rectangle. That's about 3 centimeters by 4 centimeters. It's not exactly accurate, but that's okay. Okay, so I drew my longer side. I made it 4 centimeters. What's the area of the base? So if I had this and I wanted to find the area, what would I have to do? That's right. I would need to multiply 3 times 4 because area equals length times width, right? So that's 3 times 4. So my area would be 12 square centimeters, okay? And so remember that it's square centimeters because I would be using squares, right? I would be using squares to measure this. So for example, if I could draw 4 squares, it'd be 4 squares this way. Oh, my line went a little bit kind of weird, right? And then 3 the opposite way. And my area is how many little squares I have in it. And so it would be 12. 3 times 4 is 12. If I were to count these, I would get 12. Okay. So if I'm talking about volume, what else do I need to know to find the volume of something? So obviously I can't find the volume of this because it's not a 3D shape. It's a flat shape, but I could turn it into a 3D shape. And what would I need to know in order to find the volume? Stop the video and write it down. Okay, if you said that I needed to know the number of layers, you would be correct. I would need to know how many more layers I'm adding on top or height, right? I would need to know the height of it. So either the amount of layers or the height of it, okay? The height of it in order to find volume, because volume, remember, is equal to the length times the width times the height. Length times width, width times the height. Okay, I would need to know that. Okay, if I were to put 1 layer of cubes, what would be the volume? So we're talking about my 3 times 4 shape that I had on the previous slide. So the volume, right, would be length times width times the height. My length, remember, was 4. My width was 3. And my height would be 1 because I have 1 layer. So it'd be 4 times 3 times 1, which is 12. Okay, that's if I had 1 layer. Now, how is this related to volume? Well, as you saw in the previous one, when I had it like this, remember that area is equal to length times width, and volume is equal to length times width times height. So how are they related? Stop the video and think about it and then come back to me. Okay, so if you said they both have a length, you are right. They both have a width, you are right. So the difference is that volume has height where area does not. And remember, area, we would measure it in square units, using squares, and volume, we measure it using cubic units or cube units. So that's the difference, right? Where area is a flat shape and volume has to do with a three-dimensional shape, and we use cubes. So if you know the area, then you can also do the volume, right? All you need is the height. So if you know the area of something, you can also find the volume by knowing what the height is, okay? Okay, what would happen if we added 2 more layers? So in this shape, if this bottom layer was my original layer, and then I added 2 more layers, another layer and another layer, right? So then it would be volume equals length times width times height. My length, going long ways, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's still the same. My width, 1, 2, 3, that's still the same, right? That hasn't changed. My length and my width are still the same. The only thing that would change now, I would need to know my height, right? The amount of layers. So 1, 2, 3, my height is 1, 2, 3. So then I'd multiply it by 3, okay? So 4 times 3 is 12, and then 12 times 3 equals 36. So it'd be 36 cubic, CU, cubic units. So I'm not sure what I'm measuring in. This is just in cubic units, okay? Okay, let's practice finding the area using this word problem. This ice cube is shaped like a cube, right here, shaped like a cube, okay? It says its edges lengths are 2 centimeters. So this is 2 centimeters. What is the volume of the ice cube? Write a formula to find the volume of any cube. So if this is 2 centimeters, right, and it's a cube, then I know that this also has to be 2, and I know the height also has to be 2, because remember that a cube is made of squares, and squares have the same measurement all the way around. So my formula would be volume is equal to what? Yep, length times width times height. You're correct. What's my length? My length is 2. What's my width? How much is going inwards? Well, that would also be 2. And what would be my height going up and down? My height, right, would also be 2. You're correct. So that would equal 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2 more, which is 8. So it'd be 8 cubic centimeters. Remember, centimeters. Cubes, 8 cubic centimeters, okay? So that's a review from yesterday. Let's take a look at the next word problem and see how it changes a little bit. Okay, let's look at this one. So on this one, it says, Raul is building a planter in the shape of a rectangular prism. So here's his planter that he's making. It has a length of 4 feet. So my length, here's my length. I'm going to do one color for my length. So again, if you have 3 different colors, the video and go get 3 different colors. Doesn't matter, crayons, pencils, whatever it may be, colored pencils, pens, and then come back. Okay, so I'm going to label this purple, and I'm going to say this is my 4 feet because this is my length. Okay, this is 4 feet. Sorry about the writing, boys and girls. It's hard to write with the mouse. So this has a length of 4 feet and a height of 2 feet. So I'm going to use a different color for my height. So here you can clearly see this is a height. This is a height. All these are my heights. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to label this one 2 feet. 2 feet. Okay. So I got my length and I got my height. Then it says, how wide should it be to hold 24 cubic feet? So I don't know. Let me use a different color for my width. Let me use green. How wide should it be? So the width here going in this way, my width going in, how much should that be? That's a question mark. We don't know what that is. Okay, we don't know what the width is. So how wide should it be if it holds 24 cubic feet of soil? Explain how you found your answer. So stop the video and see if you can try to figure out how you would solve that and then come back to me. Okay, so if you said we have our formula, volume, right, equals length times width times height. So what do we know? We know our volume because they said it's 24 cubic feet. It holds 24 cubic feet. And I know that's my answer because it's giving me the label of 24 cubic feet. So I know that's got to be the answer. So I know the volume is equal to 24. Do I know the length? Yes, they told me my length was 4. So I know my length is 4. Do I know my width? No, that's my unknown. So I'm going to put a question mark there, or I'm just going to put my W. Let's put a W instead. Okay, and do I know my height? Yes, they told me my height of 2 feet. So I know my height is 2 feet. So I know this. So how can I solve this? Well, I know that I don't have this, but I have this and this. I can multiply these two together. So I have 4 times 2 is 8 times W is equal to 24, right? So now I got to say, okay, 8 times what number is going to give me 24? And that's how I'm going to find my width. So let's see, 8 times 1 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 8 times 3 is 24. So my width has to be 24. Sorry, it has to be 3 because 8 times 3 is equal to 24. So my width has to be 3. Okay, so that's how I solved it. I solved it by knowing my formula, volume equals length times width times height. Then I substituted my numbers. I knew my volume was 24, I knew my length was 4, and I knew my height was 2. And so then I solved it that way. All right, so now you see that we can also solve problems when we have an unknown. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with today. We're going to be looking at problems that maybe we don't know the length, maybe we don't know the width, maybe we don't know the height. Okay, so we're going to be given the volume and we're going to be solving for unknowns. All right, so let's try some. Okay, write a numerical expression for the volume, then calculate the volume. Okay, so these are the ones like we've been doing, like the ones we did yesterday. But remember that an expression is the same thing as an equation. It just doesn't have the equal sign. So it's like expression doesn't have the equal sign. So my expression for this would be, it's still, remember, volume equals length times width times height. So I'm going to find my length on this first one, and I see my length is 2 feet, and I'm going to color it in one color. Okay, so you do the same thing. And this is located, this is math page 290. Okay, so if you don't have your math book, go grab it. If you have it, math page 290. Okay, so my length is 2 feet, so I'm going to put here 2 times my width. I'm going to do my width a different color. So my width, remember, is the one that's going in, and here's the line that's going in. So my width is 4 times my height. Remember, my height is going up and down. I'm going to do that a different color. Let's do that green. So here's my height. My height's going up and down, and my height is 3. So I'm going to solve that. I'm going to multiply 2 times 4. That gives me 8 times 3 is 24. So my volume is 24. Okay, so you do that. I'm going to stop the video and do number 9 and number 10 by yourself, and then come back for the answer. And remember to color code your length, your width, and your height. And I know it sounds, Miss Holguin, why do I have to do it? I'm just multiplying those 3 numbers. Just appease me and do it, because it's going to come in handy in a couple more lessons. Okay. Okay. Oh, and sorry, we forgot to label the other one, right? It should be cubic feet, because this is in feet, cubic feet. Okay, for the next one, your expression should be 2 times 5 times 6, 2 the length, 5 the width, and 6 the height. 2 times 5 is 10, times 6 is 60. 60 cubic inches. For number 10, our length is 5, our width is 10, and our height is 5. My expression is 5 times 10 times 5. And I multiplied 5 times 5, and I got 25. And then 25 times 10, just add a 0 to the end. Or you could have done 5 times 10 is 50, times 5 is 250 cubic centimeters. Either way would work. Okay, so that's a little bit of review. Now, let's get to some unknowns, okay? All right, I'm still on page 290. Now we're going to practice some of the unknown dimensions or volume for the rectangular prisms, kind of like the one that we did with the planter box that we did earlier, okay? So I know the volume is 120 cubic centimeters. I know my length is 4. I don't know my width, but I know my height is 5. Okay, so the same thing. Remember, volume equals length times width times height. And I know that my volume is equal to 120 cubic meters. So I know that's going to be here. That's 120. And I know my length is 4. So that's going to be there. I don't know my width, so I'm going to leave it as a W because that's my unknown. And I know my height is 5. Okay, so stop the video, see if you can solve this one, and then come back and check your answer. Okay, if you said 6 meters, you're correct, because 4 times 5 is 20. 20 times W is going to give me 120. So 20 times what is going to give me 120. They both have a 0. I can ignore them. So 2 times what is 12? 2 times 6. So 20 times 6 is 120. So my answer is 6 meters. Okay. All right, let's do the next one. Okay, so the next one says volume equals 120 cubic inches. So that's my V, because remember volume equals length times width times height. My length I don't know, so I'm going to leave it as an L. My width is 4 and my height is 3. So now I'm doing it backwards, right? So now, since I do know this, so go ahead and stop video, solve this one, and see what you come up with. Come back to me after you got your answer. Okay, if you said 10 inches, you are correct, because 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times what is going to give me 120? 12 times 10 is 120, so my answer is 10 inches, okay? So this one's, we have everything, we're just looking for the volume, so this is straight up length times width times height. So go ahead and do that one, then come back to me when you have solved that one. Okay, if you came up with 294 cubic centimeters, you would be correct because volume equals length times width times height. My length is 7, my width is 6, my height is 7. So then I did 7 times 6 is 42, and then 42 times 7, I did over here on the side. 42 times 7, 7 times 2 is 14, carry my 1. 4 times 7 is 28, plus 1 is 29, 294. So my volume is equal to 294 cubic centimeters. Okay. All right, let's try some word problems. Okay, I'm still on page 290. Write an equation, then solve. Okay, so a box shaped like a rectangular prism is 2 meters long, 2 meters wide, and has a height of 3 meters. What is the volume of the box? Okay, so go ahead and solve that one, then come back to me. And remember to write an equation. So don't just solve it, write an equation and solve. Okay, so if you have the answer of 12 cubic meters, you are correct. My equation should be V for volume is equal to length times width times height. V volume is equal to 2 because that's my length. My width, 2 meters wide, and my height, 3 meters. 2 times 2 is 4, times 3 is 12. So my volume is equal to 12 cubic meters. So I'm measuring cubic meters. Can you imagine how big those cubes would be? Remember the meter stick? I have it with me. I took it back to school, but the meter stick is pretty much from end of my tip all the way to like to here. So I don't know, you can't really see it. That's about a meter. So it's pretty long. So putting those into a rectangular prism, those would 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter, pretty big, right? Okay, let's look at the next one. Okay, I'm still on page 290. Let's look at this word problem. Let's look at number 16. The cargo hold of a truck has a height of 3 yards. So my height is 3 yards. And it's 5 yards wide. So 5 yards wide. The volume of the cargo hold is listed as 24 cubic yards. The volume is listed as 240 cubic yards. I think I said 24 earlier, right? It should be 240 cubic yards. What is the length of the cargo hold? So what am I looking for? That's right, I'm looking for my length, okay? So go ahead and see if you can figure out that one. So remember, this one we have an unknown length. So see if you can figure out that one, then come back to me. Okay, if you got 16 yards, you'd be correct. So I wrote down volume is equal to length times width times height. I knew my volume was 240 cubic yards, so 240 goes under the V. My length, that's what I'm looking for. My width, it told me that it was 5 yards wide, so my width is 5. And it told me the height of 3, so 3. I multiplied 5 times 3, and I got 15. So then I got 240 is equal to L times 15. So 15 times what is going to give me 240? Well, I'm not really sure. So what's the opposite of multiplication? Division. So I divided. I divided 240 divided by 15. So 15 goes into 24 one time. It doesn't go twice because that'd be 30. It'd be too much. 24 take away 15. I got 4. I can't take away 5. I borrowed. That made it a 1. 14 take away 5 is 9. Is 9 less than 15? Yes. So I did it right and bring down my 0. That gives me 90. 15 goes into 90 how many times? Well, I wasn't sure. So I tried 15 times 5. I just went right for the middle. And I got that 15 times 5 is 75. So I knew I had to go higher. So then I said, let me try one more. And I did 15 times 6. So 15 times 6, 5 times 6 is 30. Put my 0 down, carry my 3. 6 times 1 is 6, plus my 3 is 9. That gave me 90. So that's how I got 16 yards, okay? So in this video, we learned how to solve for unknowns, either an unknown length or width or a height, given the volume, okay? That's what we did. All right, have a great day.